With over 30 years of experience in real estate and the mortgage industry, Darlene Mays provides knowledge and expert guidance to clients looking to buy or sell a home. Serving clients throughout South Orange County, Darlene specializes in the senior community of Laguna Woods Village. Darlene works with her clients to ensure the highest level of service, from the beginning of the process right down to the closing table. If you are looking to buy or sell, who you work with really does matter. Call Darlene Mays today.
Welcome back to Beyond the Red Carpet. I have the pleasure once again of welcoming in Lady Colin Campbell, who is going to give us some insights and some wonderful stories from her life. Lady C, once again, welcome to the show.
My pleasure. Delighted to be here, as is Aurora.
Hey, Aurora, how you doing? A story that has captured my heart, and I know a lot of your viewers, is the adoption of your sons. You went to, when you were 30, as I recall, when you were 30, you decided you wanted to have a family.
40.
Oh,
30,
really?
40.
Okay, I'm off by a little bit.
I'd always liked children, and my boyfriend had 3 daughters. So, but then that was when I was in my 30s. But as I approached 40, I thought, well, what do I want? And so I decided I'd like to have children of my own. So
Good decision for you, because I've seen your boys and they are really adorable. Anyway, so you looked into foreign adoptions and decided upon Russia as the country in which you'd go to for your babies. How did that come about?
Well, I went to Russia for my godson's confirmation, which in those days, Russia was still communist, and there was no Catholic church in the whole of the Soviet Union. But there was a Catholic chapel in the German embassy in Moscow. So that's where it took place. And I went with a dear friend of mine who's godfather to my godson's sister. And we afterwards went from Moscow to St. Petersburg. And I met an amazing agent called Eugenie Visharenko. And she was the sort of person that could do anything, you know, a can-do sort of person. And I asked her if she would like to represent me. And she said yes, she'd never done it before, but she did it. And so, I mean, it was very serendipitous, and it was very sort of, let's see what we can do and let's see what we can come up with. And if you've got the will, there will be the way, hopefully, if you're capable. And Eugenie was certainly very capable.
So you were told about this one baby boy that you were going to be able to adopt. And then, now correct me on the timing of this, but you went to Russia to pick him up, but then they said you couldn't have that one, but there was another one for you. And you connected really well with that one. And then they said you couldn't have that one, but you could have the original one. Briefly explain how that all took place.
Well, sorry. You know, in those days, I don't know what it's like now. It was a very bureaucratic system. and it was split between the Ministry of Education and the Ministry of Health. And of course, I don't speak any Russian, so I really didn't know what was going on. But eventually, I thought, I'm not leaving either of them behind. So I took both. And and I think it was the best decision I made for them. I think it was the best decision I made for my conscience. I'm not so sure it was the best decision I made for my comfort, because, you know, twins or two children the same age who are effectively twins, they gang upon their parents. It's a classic. And I mean, there's no two ways about it. Unfortunately, their first headmistress was a twin and had twins. And she said to me, there are one or two things you're going to need to learn. And so she tipped me off what would happen. And sure enough, it did. And I remember she said, twins are like a very unhappily married couple, but never get between them, because there no relationship will be closer than theirs, but it's always antagonistic as well. So it's
can you just briefly fill us in on what how old they are now and what they're doing with their lives, because they had such an amazing upbringing with you as their mother?
Well, they're 31.
Mm-hmm.
One of them did business. He was at Toulouse Business School, and he now does something in money, which I'm afraid I'm not really au fait with. But he takes sorry he takes care of high-end clients, or whatever it's called. I can't remember what it's called. Mm-hmm. And he does that. And the other one has a bar in Worthing, and he does that. So each of them is gainfully employed, you could say.
And you helped decorate that bar, because I did see a YouTube show with you putting it all together, and the opening of it. It looks great. I'd love to come and see it sometime. Maybe have a drink or two.
That would be lovely.
There is one quote from your autobiography that really struck me, because you've been a socialite all your life. You've been going to parties and you've been associating with all these powerful and fun people. But when you had the babies, this quote is adorable. You said, I had been to all the parties I needed for this lifetime. I had slept with enough men to know the glories and limitations of passion. I had had my great love, romantic fulfillment, and a life that had sometimes been rather too fascinating for my own for my own comfort. The virtue of coming to motherhood so late was that I knew exactly what I was missing, and I couldn't have cared less. So to me, that says everything about you.
That says it all, doesn't it?
It really does. I had to write that down, because I thought that is ABC right there. That's an amazing way of looking at it. And you didn't mind getting up to do the diaper changes in the middle of the night. And
no, sorry, I didn't. They had a nanny.
Okay.
I only for the first few weeks. I'm sorry. Oh, my version of motherhood doesn't stretch to that extent.
But nevertheless, you did have to give up some things to.
But also, after they were a certain age, I think when they were 9, we moved to France for their education in France. And I was then, for the next 14 years, marooned in this chateau in the middle of nowhere in France, with nothing to do but listen to their friends babble away in French, which is not my first language, let's put it that way. And of course, they were always out and about with their friends. So I rarely gave up a pretty nice life in England
Mhm.
to be marooned in France for a rather longer than I expect. I mean, we were originally going to go for a year, and it just meant that if they had come back to England, they lost a year going to France, they'd have lost another year coming back to England. And they didn't speak French well enough to be at the lycée in London. And it was messy. So I decided I would keep them in France for their education. And I was happy to do it. You know, but I have to tell you, there were times when I nearly died of boredom. And I was absolutely so, I mean, there was nothing to do except speak to French farmers about cows and goats and all of that nonsense, which I wasn't interested in. So I looked at a lot of television, CSI Miami, Law and Order, Suits.
Oh my goodness. Suits. Okay, we're not going to go there today.
Well, I will say one thing. I had no idea who Meghan Markle was when Prince Harry started going out with her, notwithstanding the fact that I'd looked at Suits for about 2 or 3 years.
You know what? Nobody knew her. I mean, she was not famous here in the United States. And nobody I've spoken with has ever heard of her before her little ploy to get into the royal family and the Harry debacle that we are now living through. But you are coming to us right now from Castle Goring. That's your home. Tell us a little bit when and why and how you got it.
Well, after several years in France, after I think about 8 years, I was desperate to get out. So I put the chateau on the market because the children were old enough that I didn't need to be there all the time. And then the crash, the 2008 crash, I put it on the market in the in the August, and the crash took place in the September. So it was the worst possible timing. And then it took absolutely ages to sell. And I thought, finally, I'm sorry, I cannot stay in this godforsaken place one day longer. And so I was looking for somewhere in the country in England, because we had a house in London. In fact, we had 2 houses in London. And I thought I'd like somewhere in the country. And I was looking, I looked for about a year or 2. And then I saw Castle Goring advertised for sale on the front page of the Sunday Times magazine. And I thought, oh, well, let's go and see. And I eventually got it. So that's it in a nutshell. I think, I do think, well, my feeling of a lot that's happened in my life is it was meant to be. Oh, let's put it that way. So I saw it. It was small enough that I could manage the restoration, and it was large enough that it would be comfortable. And I'm not afraid of restorations. In fact, I don't like done-up places. I like to leave my imprimatur on things. And if you get something that's done up 9 times out of 10, you have to get rid of people's appalling taste. And you have to spend too much money because of first of all, some developer has paid to do it. Then you have to pay someone else to redo it. Much better to get something that needs to be done up. And I saw this, fell in love with it. And I say, and there's a lot of truth to it. In my 20s and 30s, it was men. In my 40s and 50s, it was my kids. And now it's Castle Goring.
Wow. Okay. Love.
Love.
Yes, love. And for the viewers, there is a little tour of Castle Goring on YouTube if you want to check it out. It's a beautiful castle. I mean, who wouldn't want to live in a castle? And I do. I would love it.
But it's rather more interesting than the average castle, because it was built by Percy B. Shelley's grandfather and conceived as the Shelley ancestral home. And Mary Shelley, who wrote Frankenstein, had to sell it because she couldn't afford to keep it up. And then it was sold to Sir George Peachel, who was one of Queen Victoria's equerries. And I bought it from one of his descendants. So it has an interesting family history and an interesting social history as well.
Indeed. Yes,
I mean, in the 19th century, everyone of consequence used to stay here or passed through here.
Wow. Well, I intend to pass through there someday. I really do. I will get over there one of these days. Your life has been so packed full of people and places. I want to delve a little bit into some of the people that we all have heard about and you have known. You have mentioned on your YouTube channel something about Aristotle, Onassis.
Oh, yes.
How did you meet him and what was he really like?
The first time I met him was at the opening of Numero Uno, which was a club owned by Igor and Oleg Cassini. The Cassini brothers were very famous. Oleg was a couturier who did Jackie Kennedy's clothes in the White House. And Igor was for a while the social columnist in the whole of the United States. And they were actually Russian counts. And my father's part Russian. So there's a bit of a link there. And I met him at the opening of Numero Uno. And my immediate impression of him was that he was porcine. He was like a little pig. He was solid like a pig and almost shaped like an erect pig. And really not very unattractive. And within 90 seconds, you were totally captivated by his personality. And within 5 minutes, you were speaking to one of the most attractive people you had ever met. Now, that's the power of personality. That's true charisma. And I mean, he never, ever tried anything untoward with me. You know, he was Greek and he was properly brought up, as all Greeks are, irrespective of their background. You know, there are two sorts of girls. And then I used to see him at Sarah Spencer Churchill's, because Sarah's brother Sonny had been married to Ari's first wife, Tina, and they were great friends. So I used to see him at Sarah's as well. I liked him. He really charismatic is let's just leave it at that, because he really was one of the most attractive personalities. Which shows physical beauty isn't everything.
Yeah, that is an amazing story, because it's hard to, just looking at him, it's hard to see that. But then he attracted so many. Lee Radziwill was.
She was a cow. I couldn't stand her.
Really? Okay.
Jackie I liked. Jackie was really lovely. I mean, Jackie treated me, and I would imagine all other girls, because, you know, Jackie would have been 20-something years older than I was. And I mean, aging women can be, if they can be unpleasant with younger, more attractive girls, let's put it that way. Lee was like that, very competitive and really a bitch. Jackie Jackie treated me exactly the same way that she treated Sarah or Geraldine Fuller. Geraldine Fuller was married to Andy Fuller, and she was what the Spreckles sugar heiress. And they were huge deals at the time. And in fact, their daughter married Lord Charles Spencer Churchill, Sarah's younger brother. And, you know, Jackie was lovely, but Lee was a real cow. So,
Did you know, were you in New York at the time of Studio 54?
no, I never went to Studio 54. And I didn't go to New York from, I think, 1979 to 1986, something like that. Might have been 1980 to 1980, but around that time. So I missed Studio 54 altogether. But it would never have been my sort of scene. I'd never liked wild and druggy and exhibitionistic. The thing about the club or Numero Uno is that they were très raffinés, very sedate, great fun, but people weren't exhibiting themselves. There was an element of decorum. I've always been sufficiently decorous as to not like too much exhibitionism, let's put it that way. And also, you know, that in the 70s, I used to cross paths with Bianca Jagger. And I have to tell you, she was not my cup of tea at all. All of that sashing and flaunting of oneself. I mean, she's now reinvented herself as a great humanitarian. But in those days, so people like that, no, thank you.
So Truman Capote, there was just that mini series on television about Truman Capote and the Swan. Did you know Truman at all? Had you met him?
I never met him. I didn't know him. I knew some of the Swans, not terribly well, but Babe Paley, Bill and Babe Paley, I knew from Jamaica. They had a house in Jamaica. And he actually when he was the chairman of CBS, and I was still with Colin Campbell, I went to him and asked him for a job because Bill was well known to give jobs to nice, well-connected young ladies and gentlemen as well. And he actually put me in touch for me being an editor at Holt, Reinhardt and Winston, which I think he owned. If he didn't own it, he certainly had leverage there. And that's when I ended up in Lenox Hill Hospital. And so I was in no shape to take up the job. But Babe was lovely. She was very elegantly beautiful. But Truman Capote, no, I never met him.
Now, you dated Roddy Llewellyn, who was
no.
Oh, you didn't date but you went with him as a kind of not a shield, but because Princess Margaret. That story, that's a fun story. Why don't you do that?
Yeah. Well, I met Roddy through John Rendell, who wrote A Lion Like Christian, and Liz Brewer, who at the time were going out and they ended up getting married. And Roddy was John's best friend. So we would double date when Princess Margaret, because Roddy was having an affair with Princess Margaret at the time. But when you say dated, I mean, if you mean date, no. But I would be, I suppose you'd call it the beard. And so whenever Roddy needed somebody and Princess Margaret obviously couldn't because they weren't supposed to be having an affair. So Roddy was very sweet. He was very sweet. But my really good friends were John and Liz. And John's died about 2 years ago. And Liz is still a friend of mine. And I see Roddy very occasionally. But I mean, we've not really kept up. But he's very sweet. And he was very devoted and loyal to Princess Margaret. And she remained friends with him and his wife, Tanya, till her dying day.
Wow. Okay.
Who else?
Who else do you, I mean, who else don't you know? Well, you broke the news about Queen Elizabeth II's death. You were, well, I would say, not, should I say in contact with, but you were someone with whom the castle, the palace could trust. Your trust has not been broken. You do not really tell the people, out the people that you've gotten information from. But there's another quote in your book that said that the palace said you're the one in the know. Do you get in contact with them quite often for information, or how does it work?
No. Oh, I'm very independent of that. First of all, and this is going to sound awfully snobbish, but it's not really intended to be snobbish. Most of the courtiers are servants. They may be grand servants, but they're servants. I don't deal at servant level. Sorry. And by and large, the information I get through my personal life and my personal connections. There have been times when I knew what was going on before people at the palace knew what was going on. And I also wouldn't be naive enough to be asking them to verify something, A, that they might not know, and B, if they knew, they would be lying about. Because, for instance, Richard Aylard, who was the then Prince of Wales's private secretary, when my book, first Diana book, Down in Private, was being serialized by the Sunday Express, he went into the Daily Express, which was being run by Nick Lloyd, who was married to Sue Pollard, who was the editor of the Sunday Express. So husband and wife team ran the daily and Sunday papers separately, but obviously they did meet when the lights were out. And Richard Aylard went in and saw Nick Lloyd and said, oh, you surely can't be going to be, your wife surely can't be going to be serializing that rubbish book by Lady Colin Campbell. She's going to make a total fool of herself. And she repudiated the contract on the strength of that. Well, of course, I sued. I got back, I not only got back all the money they owed me, but I got back damages for the damage they did because they tried to trash my reputation. But this was 3.5 or 4 years down the line. And in the meantime, I had all of the inconvenience of all of that. So did Richard Aylard know the truth? And was he lying to cover up for the Waleses? I would say, of course, he knew the truth, and he was lying to cover up for the Waleses, and thought that if he suppressed my book, that they would be able to maintain the fiction that the marriage was anything but totally asunder. But what really saved my bacon and fried theirs was that the Morton book came out several months later. And then, of course, they were really grateful to have had my book, which was a truthful and balanced account of the Waleses' marriage as well as Diana's life and personality. And but I wouldn't trust them. And in fact, I very seldom am ever in touch with the palace. And when I am very careful how I couch things, because I am they are aware and I am aware that our relationship is respectful, but not necessarily close. Let's put it that way. And it makes the servants of the crown, and they are servants. It makes them very nervous that I might know stuff before they do, and also that they have no control over me. So, but that's good, because I need to be autonomous. If I were not autonomous, I wouldn't have been able to get the information I've got and write the books that I've written. And ultimate, but so insofar as the Queen's death announcement was concerned, that was not done at courtier level. That was done above courtier level. I mean, I'm sorry, I'm sounding like an unmitigated snob, but it really was way beyond courtier level. And it was, I was very reluctant initially, but then it was apparent that if in the 2 hours, because I made the announcement at 4 o'clock, and the palace was due to make the announcement at 6 o'clock. And so, but a lot of people in Fleet Street, so to speak, would have found out, but not when I found out, because of course my video was posted at 4 o'clock, which meant that it was made before 4 o'clock. So, I thought about it very carefully, and I realized, and the danger of not posting it was that Meghan would have got on to amid scabies, and they'd have rocked their eyebrows together, and they would have come up with, oh, you know, these racists, they're keeping me from Granny, and I was Granny's favorite granddaughter-in-law, and I mean, can you believe it? And they don't want me there because they're just jealous of me. And so really it was to pip her at the post and prevent her making hay while the sun shines that I did it. And I also knew that it was safe to do it, because once I did it, there was the rest of the press, because I'm not press, remember, so I'm governed by completely different protocols, that the press wouldn't breach the embargo. Yes. And but the embargoes don't apply to me. And also I'm not press, so I hadn't been informed as a member of the press. The press were informed, and they were informed after I had done my video. So that's really why I did it.
Yes. Okay, well, you are very well plugged in. You have had an amazing life so far, with more to come. And one of these years, days, weeks, whatever, I will get to Castle Goring, and then we'll have a little drink at your son's bar. That sounds like a lot of fun. In the meantime, I wish you all the best. And for the viewers, thanks for watching. Lady C, hopefully will come back another time when she's got some more stories to tell, which she has a lot of. And in the meantime, thanks for watching, and I will see you soon. Take care.
Thank you very much. God bless.
With over 30 years of experience in real estate in the mortgage industry, Darlene Mays provides knowledge and expert guidance to clients looking to buy or sell a home. Serving clients throughout South Orange County, Darlene specializes in the senior community of Laguna Woods Village. Darlene works with her clients to ensure the highest level of service, from the beginning of the process right down to the closing table. If you are looking to buy or sell, who you work with really does matter. Call Darlene Mays today.